Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar where we'll be discussing can technology build 5-star guest experiences in partnership with Guesty and Alexa Smart Properties. So my name is Priya and I'm the editor of Short-Term Rentals. For those of you who may not be familiar, we are a B2B publication dedicated to the short-term rental industry, where we focus on creating original content, news and insights to support professionals across the sector. Okay, so before we get stuck in, we have 2 short videos from our sponsors, Guesty and Alexa Smart Properties.
Thanks to the Navu suite of products, property managers and short-term rental owners can deploy Alexa Smart Properties at scale across their property or portfolio. Alexa allows guests seamless access to information and streamlines your operations and notifications between guest, staff, and property management. Simply open the console, input property information, activate services, manage options, and you're ready to provide an amazing voice experience for your guests.
Okay, so before we get stuck in, I just have a couple of webinar guidelines to run through. So today's session will involve a 45-minute Q&A with our panelists. And if you do have any questions for them, then please pop them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and I'll bring them up at the end of the webinar. A recording of this webinar will also be made available to everybody who has registered within 24 hours. And finally, a short survey will appear at the end once the webinar ends. It only takes a couple of minutes, so if you have the time, we would really value your feedback. You'll also find more information about our sponsors and our speakers in the chat box below, so please do take a look there if you'd like to learn more after the session. Okay, so to set the scene, I pulled a few recent headlines that we've covered on short-term rentals that kind of show how technology is making an impact in shaping the guest experience. So, for example, we've seen a 45% jump in hosts using AI tools to handle guest messaging, showing how automation is really becoming central to guest communications. We've also seen companies like Muse integrate room keys with Apple and Google Wallets, making check-in faster and more convenient for guests. And while partnerships like Casago and Breezeway are focusing on how tech can support operations while also enhancing the guest journey. So all of this kind of points to the same question, which is how can technology move beyond efficiency and actually deliver the kind of 5-star experiences that will help keep them coming back? So let's ask our panelists. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to just introduce themselves, starting from left to right, as we can see on screen. So Sandrine, if we could start with you. Welcome, Sandrine.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Sandrine, and I won't trouble you with my last name because it's not pronounceable. I work for RMS, as you can see here. It's property management software, headquartered in Australia with big presence in Europe and in the UK. We work with the likes of Rooms that you guys would have heard of, and I'm their Chief Marketing Officer.
Great. Thank you, Sandrine. And Victoria, welcome.
Hi, I'm Victoria Day, and I work at Amazon in the Amazon Alexa Enterprise team. So that is essentially Alexa outside of the home and into properties like hotels and short-term rentals.
Thank you, Victoria, and Alexander, welcome.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex, the co-founder and CEO of guestready and rentalready. guestready is a globally leading property management company, mostly focused in Europe and the Middle East. We manage about 4,000 units. And to scale up guestready, we've built rentalready, a AI native PMS, and we have our goal is to help other property managers with rentalready to be equally or even more successful than guestready.
Thank you, Alexander, and Jeremy, welcome.
Hey everyone, good to see you all. I'm Jeremy, I'm the COO of BobW. So I'm another operator like Alex, slightly different in that BobW, although it came from similar roots in short-term rental management, we have evolved over time to become an apart hotel brand. We've now got 46 apart hotels in 12 different countries across Europe. And the business was built from the ground up using technology, but using technology to enhance the guest experience. So hopefully I'll have some things to say on this topic.
Great, thank you, Jeremy. So let's get stuck in. So I think where I wanted to begin was when we think about delivering a 5-star guest experience, and the big question kind of is, what does that mean? And what does that mean for guests today? So Jeremy, if we start with you, when you think of a 5-star guest experience, what does that look like for your guests?
Yeah, really good question. And it's part of our mission statement as Bob is to provide an authentic 5-star experience to every single guest at scale. But we're also conscious of the fact that 5-star experience should mean different things to different companies. So our version of 5-star experience isn't necessarily the same as Four Seasons or the Ritz Plaza hotels and that sort of thing. I mean, so obvious it almost goes without saying. But for us, the fundamental pillars of a 5-star experience are frictionless guest journey. So getting the guests from booking to checking out as frictionlessly as possible. So technology is quite an important part of that. Everything from pre-arrival guest communications to a bulletproof entry system with a PIN pad, a code that they receive before arrival, all the systems and processes that get them through that guest journey, and then collecting feedback from that guest as they once they've checked in, after they've checked out, and then feeding that back in to improve the service. So for us, 5-star experience is feeling like you're being hosted without necessarily having a front desk that you would expect at a normal hotel, and actually being autonomous as a traveler, checking in by yourself, but still feeling supported, and that there is a host there for you if you need it.
Thank you, Jeremy. And Alexander, coming to you, same question. When you think about a 5-star guest experience, what does that actually look like?
Actually, very similar answer, right? I was thinking that it really depends on who the guest is, and if you're traveling, for example, you're traveling for a leisure holiday somewhere on a remote island, you're staying with a local host, it's very different. Maybe the 5-star experience there is that they welcome you with olive oil from their local farm and homemade bread that is still warm and so on. So this kind of personal vibe. But if you come to a major city like London or Lisbon, and you're arriving there with your family, and you just want a seamless stay, right? A bit what Jeremy mentioned before. I think there it's all about like being very seamless. You already have your plans for the city, and you just want everything to work like clockwork. The check-in before when you book, that everything is clear. You don't want, like, you kind of want to have the information that you need served at the time that you need it. And then also the whole check-in process, make it as easy as possible with smart locks and so on. And yeah, and then probably what is also nice to have a little extra. So recently stayed, when I travel, I like to stay with guestready myself, and stayed in Lisbon, and then there was some fresh natas, some port wine, and and some fresh grapes. And I think these little extras, they also go a long way. But it's really, I think, for city travelers, maybe it's more about the convenience and the seamless journey. And if you travel for leisure, staying with a local host, maybe it's different. And if you stay at the Ritz or so, then again, it's different. Yeah.
Thank you. So it's all about those kind of little personal touches that can really make a bigger difference. So when we think about technology, Victoria, when we think about in-room technology and smart devices and how we can utilize that to kind of add to the guest experience during stay, what can that look like, and how can in-room technology kind of help make that consistency possible?
Absolutely. And I agree with you that the consistency is all part of that luxurious guest experience. You know, there's a lot of technology out there that helps you with the check-in process, that helps you before your stay and then to review the property after your stay. But once you're in the room, for us, what we talk about at Alexa Smart Properties is a guest experience that has technology that's there when you need it, but that fades into the background when you don't. So being able to ask for property information. So, you know, when does the pool open? Or, hey, what's the Wi-Fi password? Instead of having to pick up a phone and speak to someone, maybe wait until they can answer the phone, or even in some cases, you know, go downstairs to a reception or walk across the yard to find your host. You can just ask Alexa for that information and it's provided to you seamlessly.
Thank you. And Sandrine, just looping you in here, obviously, when we think about in-room guest technology, how can property management softwares integrate to kind of help enable that consistency?
Well, that's true of every technology, right? You're gonna struggle if it's not connected. And I think when we are in this world of there's loads of hospitality technology providers out there, ultimately it's got to tie back to your guests. So what we're seeing at RMS is there is definitely more of a demand for property management software systems that we've seen before. And that's because smart technologies like Alexa connect well, or have to connect well, with the PMS, which is like your core of your business, like your sort of center of command, so to speak, for it to be powerful. So you kind of need that connectivity there so that you are able to deliver that personalized experience. And for most folks, and I'm sure for the people here, usually that lives on the PMS. So PMS integration are really important in this day and age if you want to deliver the guest experience that you need at scale. Nothing works if it's really disconnected. You need all of this and open portable APIs, and the demand for that has been incremental the last few years, and I think we're going to see only more of that.
And Alexander, just coming back to you here. So when we think of what we're talking about in-room kind of technology, how does that play out for you day to day when it comes to delivering strong guest experiences? And can you share examples maybe of where it's kind of helped you improve operations and guest experience?
Actually, to be honest, we try to keep it simple for guests, because we see that anything that can lead to complexity can also lead to then challenges, difficulties. Maybe guests don't really understand what's going on. I think where we leverage smart technology a lot is on smart locks, of course. I think in room, we have smart TVs, for example. But on like often what we've also seen is that smart can mean can mean a bit complex, and there we just try to keep it simple. And for example, we've seen that in the past there were companies that offered sort of tablets in room, and for us we prefer that guests can just use their own mobile phone, for example, because they already know what's going on their mobile phone. They already know how to handle that. They don't need to navigate yet another device. It's very simple. So we try to keep it simple, but I'm sure if you do it well, then this can be very powerful for guests.
I remember those, Alex, those tablets, and that was I think that was a a good example of something that at the time seemed like it was going to be a natural progression to have these interactive devices in short-term rentals and hotels, but it came along at the wrong time. As you say, it's much easier just to do all of that stuff on the device you already have. Which smart lock systems do you guys use? Because as you say, like some of them are way too over-engineered and complex.
Yeah, again, just keep it simple, because anything that is not simple, guests will have lots of questions. Not everybody is like super savvy. I mean, we use a variety of different ones. Depends also a bit on the market. But yeah, I mean, we can catch up with Jeremy on that topic probably and compare notes.
Yeah, for sure. I was just going to add as well. I completely agree with the sentiment to keep things simple, and keep things. If you're going to integrate new tech, whether it's physical hardware or digital tech into the guest journey, make sure it's additive to the guest experience rather than just tech for tech's sake. But there's also some examples of very non-sexy hardware that we have found to be quite useful, like bed bug detection devices and prevention devices that can integrate with the beds and trigger a sort of a notification to an app that tells us if something's been detected. And often you can jump on the issue before it becomes a full-scale infestation. So it's not something that's directly impacting the guest in a positive way, but hopefully it is in an indirect way that they don't even know about.
I think to the point around keeping it simple and also having technology that makes sense for guests to use, completely agree with that. I think that's where having consumer technology or technology that guests are going to recognize in their room can be really helpful. So for example, an Alexa device or even, QR codes or a guest being able to WhatsApp with a host can be really helpful because it's something they use in their everyday lives.
Absolutely.
Interestingly, with Alexa smart properties and more specifically voice as well, one of the things that we found when we're looking at, for example, the senior living industry, obviously different to the vacation rental industry, is that residents seem to intuitively understand how to talk to technology more easily than they do to how to navigate a tablet or device. And I think that's where voice, even though, and AI, it feels like, oof, it's that next step. It's a bit scary. It's new. It's very complex. I think that's where actually voice and AI can be really simple, because if you just have to ask a question, hey, when is recycling day? Or, hey, how do I work the thermostat? Ask my host for a late checkout. That can be much easier to navigate than having to go through a tablet and find the right menu or make the right request to your host. So definitely agree with technology needing to be simple, but also I don't think new technology necessarily means complex and difficult to deploy or use.
Victoria, I think as well, we're kind of progressing into a space in the industry where AI and technology is becoming a lot more prevalent. So it's interesting to see how that's developing and really tapping into the guest experience. So just on that, I wanted to speak a little bit about personalization. So Jeremy, I know you mentioned some of the technology that you are using, but how are you using technology to maybe help strengthen the guest experience? And are you seeing that becoming more important now in practice?
Yeah, there's a couple of examples that I give here. One that's very kind of basic, and it's hard to even call it technology, but it's that every single BobW has a retro games console as a sort of like little surprise and delight feature. That's an example of tech that's been around for years, and it's just there to sprinkle a little bit of magic dust. It's not something that guests are filtering for on the OTAs. It's certainly not something guests are expecting, but it's a nice surprise when they see it. And I think adding in those relatively cheap little touches that kids can engage with, that can have that feeling of nostalgia for someone who's old enough to remember retro games consoles, can be a nice way to just add a bit to the experience. So that's one thing. On the other side of it, it's something that we're working on getting much better at, and we're sort of at the beginning of the journey here, is thinking of a guest checking in and providing their information during the check-in, not as just the mandatory steps that they need to take to fulfill the local compliance requirements for check-in, but actually thinking of it as getting to know the customer and building a profile, and being able to get information from guests that they're willing to give, and they don't feel like they're having to give over too much. That's the kind of friction that we don't want. But with that information, we can be building a rich profile about the guest, and then start personalizing their journey in a way that feels hosted and unique and 5-star, without bordering onto that, I think, very fine line of being a bit creepy. So with that kind of information, you can do really basic stuff, like, say, I've stayed with BobW before, so the message that I get up before arrival says, "Welcome back, Jeremy." That's just a small little signal that we've recognized that you've stayed before, all the way up to more hyper-personalized events, such as me mentioning to our customer service team that I really liked a certain restaurant, and when I go back again, getting a personal list of recommendations that align with that selection. We haven't got there yet, but that's the kind of direction we're looking to go in, but not rushing, because we don't really want to suddenly start spamming guests with loads of unnecessary junk that they don't need or want.
And Sandrine, just bringing you in here, where do you kind of see the biggest opportunities for automation in helping property managers personalize their guest journey?
So there's two things, right? Automation has been around for a while, and I think the PMSs of this world, definitely RMS, has been, leading the way in saving hours. But this might be more of the back end. And then there is things that impact the customer, and their AI is proving really powerful. So we're working on something we're calling for now the guest insight card, which is kind of what you were talking about, Jeremy. So it basically surfaces a guest profile at check-in. So it will say something like, Jeremy has been here twice, and he ate at the restaurants, and he, I don't know, lost his bag or whatever, or wasn't happy about housekeeping. And that will help front desk workers to serve them the right message, the right welcome message. So these are some of the things that we're seeing. We're also partnering with a company called Mima, which is probably like the leading company out there for AI engagement. They have this sort of amazing AI bot that can basically answer most of the question that a customer would have. So it's obviously there 24/7. It speaks different languages, and it learns from whatever you feed it. I mean, you see these AI bots in loads of other areas. I'm sure, like, I work in software, so I'm often on different help centers and so on, and I interact with those a lot, and these are proving really powerful. So these companies out there just focusing on the hospitality sector, they've built it just for that. So I think there is a lot of promise. I think there is not that much that's been rolled to at scale yet, at least that I can see. And on whether or not this will deliver a 5-star experience, I'm not sure that technology on its own can do that. Can it deliver a 5-star experience on its own? Probably not. I think you still need the human interaction for that to be the case. But on the other side, I've never seen a scenario where the technology and the engagement pre-stay, post-stay was terrible digitally, and that being salvaged somehow by the front desk staff. I haven't really seen that. So it's not really a nice to have. Like, you really need to have those components in place if you then want to deliver the 5-star. It won't deliver it on its own, but you won't be able to deliver it if you don't have it.
Definitely, it's all about balancing that human touch, which is obviously so integral to hospitality, with AI and automation, and how we can use that best to help elevate the guest journey. And just on something you mentioned there, Sandrine, about the data and using data to kind of help know what your guests want and kind of facilitate a more personalized journey. Do you think that is something that's going to become more prevalent for operators moving forward?
I think so. I think it's the same everywhere. Like we are almost struggling with too much data. So what is a true vision of your guest? So we're calling this golden guest record, which is like your true vision, your 360 vision of your guest. And that ideally lives somewhere, whether it's in your PMS or your CRM or whatever. And then it's fed by different platforms. So, you know, if you're using this AI bot that I'm mentioning, you want that surfaced here. If you're using a payment system, you want that surfaced here, whatever it is. That element, that data, the same as for guests, it needs to be in one place. It needs to be always up to date. It needs to be easy for front desk staff to use and to access and to actually build on it. And it's, in fact, with technology, has almost made it overly complicated when you have like different guest records living in different places. This can really lead to a lot of headache for front desk staff. So the idea, what we are championing is this idea that your golden guest record would live somewhere. Obviously, I work for a PMS, so I will say in the PMS, and that it is enriched by the different application and integrations that you have, as opposed to having a version of the guest record here, another one here, another one somewhere else. And it's really prevalent for properties like BobW, for example. You've got different hotels, right? Different hotels in different places in the UK. A guest is still your guest, whether they go to one or they go to two, or to three, and then they go to the other one, and then you don't recognize them. So, the ability to have a true enterprise offering is really important. So you're able to service that 5-star experience. That all that data needs to live at a portfolio level, not at individual property level. So this is another thing that we're championing, is people really need to think about it as a portfolio of properties as opposed to just one, because most short-term rental operators would have more than one. So we work a lot with rooms, like I mentioned before. We have built their enterprise architecture, and they can see this golden guest record across all their properties. So it obviously builds on loyalty, it builds on that 5-star experience, it builds on that personalization. So all these things really matter.
Maybe I can add here actually a few things that come to mind. I think it's definitely the guest record is super important. What we also see to be able to deliver really great experience to guests at scale is actually that you also need to have a lot of information about the property that is accessible to your AI. So that's what for us at GuestReady Rental Ready's AI agent Maya has been an incredible help. We're now at the second version that we just released this summer, and this AI plugs into all the property records. And I think it's particularly helpful for short-term rentals, where actually a lot of the properties are very different. If you just have one hotel or one building where every room is the same and all the rules are exactly the same, sort of you can probably just plug in any sort of AI system and you can teach it very quickly. But
sadly, that's not the case.
Yeah, probably not even then. But if you have like hundreds of properties that are all very different, then you need to have very, very granular information about every one of these properties accessible to the AI system, right? So I think that's, in addition to the guest record that Sandrine mentioned about, it's also really important to have your property record and per property information very, very clearly laid out and accessible by AI. And the second point I wanted to make, because we're talking about personalization, I think often we're thinking sort of technology versus personalization, but the way how we see it at GuestReady and also enabled by Rental Ready is that actually technology enables that personalization, because at GuestReady we have a team of 40 people in the guest support, and it can be very, very busy. We're managing like 20,000 reservations a month, so it can be extremely busy with hundreds of check-ins in a day. And without AI, I think actually we wouldn't be able to manage it now. And AI is taking like 50+% already of the workload. And it's become very, very good now at also personalizing. So let's say like a guest arrives and they have issues with the train. There's an issue with the train track. The train doesn't work. They send a message, say that they're stuck, and then AI can immediately already send sort of a link to book a taxi or so, which is something that couldn't be done before. And I mean, our team, I can see it as well sometimes. Our team, when they message, they're under pressure. They can be quite brief, and AI is never under pressure, right? AI is always very courteous, very empathetic, and we're getting a lot of great feedback actually on that from guests, on the speed and also the way how the messages are written, that sometimes can be more human than actually humans, which is a bit ironic, but that's how it is now.
I totally agree with that. I would say just to add on to that, if you're watching this webinar and you haven't gone as far as maybe BobW or guestready and rental ready have with AI and chatbots and things like that, and you're a bit worried about it, there's a couple of ways that you can dip your toe without going full 100% into it. One of them is using AI to surface that property and guest information quicker to your customer service team so they can answer faster. So that's one thing. So almost like a sort of co-pilot. So whatever system, whether it's Google Drive or Confluence or Notion or whatever knowledge base you're using to as your system of record for your buildings, having that surface to your customer service team much quicker using AI, that's a good first step, dipping your toe in the water. And then the next would be to use a chatbot, but only let that chatbot answer the really static information. You know, if this applies to guestready and BobW, it'd be check-in times, check-out times, what to do with my luggage if I want to leave it somewhere for the day while I go and explore before I can check in. These are pieces of information that don't change from one year to the next. So you can be pretty confident that if you let AI answer that, it's going to answer it quicker and more consistently than a human ever will be able to, thus providing a much better experience even than humans.
Thank you, Jeremy. And I know you mentioned some of the ways that you are utilizing AI, but obviously with BobW's positioning as kind of creating that home away from home feeling, how can you use technology to kind of create that atmosphere for guests during their stays?
Yeah, well, certainly as Victoria touched upon earlier, and Alex as well, don't introduce loads of technology for the sake of it, and don't introduce technology that people aren't really used to. So we use just very common smart TVs as well, as Alex mentioned, nothing complicated there. We use WhatsApp as our primary communications tool. When a guest doesn't want to use WhatsApp or doesn't have WhatsApp, it defers to SMS at that point. But these are common channels of communication. So guests aren't having to download an additional app or go into an additional service. So we're reducing the barriers there. When it comes to using AI for that, as I said, the ethos there is, well, we're trying to provide a hospitality experience, right? So hospitality for me is providing a service to a guest that is evoking positive feelings as a result of that service. So whether it's AI or automated messages or hardware or any of these tech devices, we just use the rubric that if it is enhancing those positive feelings and feelings of safety and feelings of being hosted, then use it. If it's not, then don't. Keep it simple, as Alex said earlier.
Thanks, Jeremy. And so we mentioned it a bit earlier about kind of the pre-arrival stage and what kind of goes on before the guest arrives and also after they've checked out. So I just want to dig into that a little bit deeper. So Sandrine, beyond the kind of guest-facing side, how can technology support operation teams to deliver that consistent, high-quality service that can really shape the guest experience even before they arrive?
I think technology is the backbone of pre-stay communications, frankly, or any pre-stay environment, if there is such a thing. But the guest isn't here. Obviously, we don't know them. We very likely have not been on the phone to them. So technology is really like what you can rely on. So to deliver that good guest experience. And again, an excellent pre-stay could include things like the ability to manage, obviously book, manage, and pay your reservation online. That seems standard, but it's not always the case still. The ability to check in, obviously beforehand, and ideally the ability to save your details, so you don't have, if you stayed before, then you don't have to refill those details again. Maybe some pre-arrival tips, maybe a friendly note from your front desk person. So there's a number of things and all these can be automated, right? It can have a really nice, warm feeling, but it doesn't have to be somebody slaving away, going through the arrivals list. Like all of this can be done in bulk. And we've done this for a really, really long time. Obviously, when the guest is here, it makes it, we know what it can do. And then I think, even after, technology has been seen to deliver really good experience after the stay. So you've got all your post-stay communication, your loyalty, anything to do around, automating reviews, automating marketing emails. I work in marketing, so I've got to say that. Promotion, all this type of stuff has and the ability to not. So for example, if you've had a really bad stay, you may not want to be served a survey or a feedback survey. Again, this can be done in bulk. You don't need to, you just need to set the rules and the technology will run that for you. You just need to map it all out and set some, certain parameters, and your tech provider can help you with that. And it's pretty straightforward, but I'm surprised still about how many people don't use it or rely on the OTAs to do so, which is, obviously it counts, I guess, towards your rating, but we've stayed in your property, I've become your guest. There's ways to automate that review or that post-stay warm feeling.
Sandrine. And Alexander, just coming to you here, what are you seeing in terms of how tech is kind of shaping the guest journey before guests even arrive?
Yeah, I think the base layer is really what I would say, make it very seamless, make it easy. I think we touched upon a few of these topics already, but I guess one big difference in short-term rentals and hotels is that lots of short-term rentals actually don't have a front desk where you just rock up and you do your check-in. So you have to do all of these different steps that you would do at a check-in desk. You'd have to do this online. For us at guestready, we're leveraging the capabilities of the Rental Ready platform, where we can do an online guest registration, where we have WhatsApp as primary channel as well, where we integrate also with the apps of the messaging apps of Booking.com or Airbnb or other OTAs, so that it's really quite seamless depending on the guest, on what the guest prefers. And then you can upload, for example, in many countries, you need to collect guest details to be compliant with the local authorities. We can have that automated so that guests can just take upload a picture, for example, and then they don't need to fill in all the details about their passport details and so on, when it expires, what date, and so on. It can be quite tedious. Just upload a picture and OCR does the rest. And then also we have a guest space where guests can manage their stay, they can extend the stay, they can cancel the stay, they can book an early check-in, late check-out, extra cleans, they can book also extra services and so on. And I think what Jeremy mentioned is also pretty important, that you don't have to download an extra app actually as a guest, because you really don't. We already have so many apps on our phones, right? So this is just a web app, and it kind of makes it very, very seamless. And I think the next level is also what Jeremy mentioned before, is to learn more about the guest and then actually serve them very personalized content, depending on the purpose of their trip, on what they have been messaging about, and depending on the profile as well of the guests. I think there's a lot of interesting things that we'll see in the next couple of months and years coming out as this will be enabled by AI.
Thank you. And is there anything to say about how to kind of keep that relationship alive once the guest has left, and kind of maintaining that guest experience after as well?
Yeah, I think as Sandrine mentioned it, stay in touch with your brand, stay in touch through reminding them that they stayed with you, through very relevant, like interesting content, and also the reviews. I think was a very interesting remark that Sandrine made. What we leverage is Rental Ready has sort of a guest mood feature that where AI detects your guest's mood based on the messages, and then if it's a good mood, then you want to send review chasers, because also we know that a lot of the guests, including myself, and I rarely leave reviews, unfortunately. So if you know somebody had a great stay, you really want to chase them. But if you know that they didn't have a good stay because AI detected their guest mood is not great, then you probably don't want to chase them. Things like that.
Interesting. And Victoria, do you think that maybe in-room technology can kind of influence what guests remember? So I guess more so how we use technology to create more personalized experiences or interactive experiences. Could that in turn impact reviews that they leave and kind of what they remember about their stays?
Yeah, absolutely. And, thinking about personal experience with a hotel in Spain that was really lovely. It was May that I stayed there, and I didn't realize that you couldn't use air conditioning at that time of the year in that part of Spain. And I spent ages trying to fiddle around with the thermostat, called down to reception and got my answer eventually. But it's frustrating because the thing that I remember about that hotel is the thermostat irritating me. Whereas if there's technology in a room that can help me understand how my room works or guide me to, best use the space that I'm paying to use, then that's something that I'll remember positively. But thinking more broadly about your question, the answer is absolutely. Going into a room and being wowed by the technology that's there, but not overwhelmed by it, I think is going to give you a really positive experience when it comes to your stay. And by that, I mean, a lovely TV with all of the smart TV, features and channels is probably going to become more and more important to guests because we're all used to having that in our homes. Having integrated appliances and smart plugs that turn on lights with your voice are also going to become more and more important because it's the type of everyday luxury that we experience at home and will start to want. But what you don't want is to walk into a hotel room, going back to Alexander's point at the beginning, where you're overwhelmed by the technology and you feel confused and frustrated by it. So I think there's a fine balance between wowing a guest so that they feel like, wow, this is cool, I love this, or amazing, I use this at home, it's so easy to use here, versus someone feeling like, oh, there's too much technology in here for me. It's a fine balance.
Definitely. And Jeremy, just bringing you in here as well, what role do you think that technology kind of plays in building that loyalty with a guest and maybe securing those repeat bookings and encouraging those better reviews as well?
I don't have a huge amount to add than what's been said before, but was very interested to hear about Alex's technology, though, with this AI detecting the guest mood. That's a really, really interesting feature that I haven't seen on any of the off-the-shelf kind of chatbot tools or guest management tools. So would definitely like to discuss that with you because it's a really cool feature. I mean, we've all experienced that as a guest when you've had the worst time ever, and then you receive an automated message asking you to leave a review. I mean, that's the last thing you want. But I guess to answer your question, providing an amazing stay is the best tool for loyalty. I mean, yes, you can do all the best like post-stay comms and adding them to your loyalty program and giving them discounts on future stays and whatnot. We have our own loyalty program called the Inner Circle, where you get cool features as you tier up as a member. But ultimately, it's about providing an amazing experience, great value for money, and with a brand that's recognizable so that people want to come back again and again. Simple.
Yeah, and I would add, actually, not everything has to be tech, right? I think what we do often not well enough yet in our industry is actually brand our properties in our brand, and maybe have signs that are branded, or have little extras that are branded, a welcome kit or so. Just to remind people when they stay with us that actually, oh yeah, I'm staying in a guestready or a BobW property or whatever your brand is. And I think hotels are very good at that. Traditionally, probably in our industry, where the inventory is a bit more distributed, it's also a bit harder to manage. But I think that's also something that is very low tech, actually, not tech at all, but can also make a difference.
There's ways you can. Oh, sorry, Jeremy.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I think there's ways to extend your branding as well in a hotel room in an unobtrusive way. Be that, having BobW branding on the landing page of the smart TV that you're using, right? Or having little kind of QR codes that someone could scan, having an Alexa device in the room with the BobW branding on every screen that you show on that device to remind the guest, hey, this is where you are, you're having a fantastic time. Because I don't know about you, if I've booked a short-term rental on Airbnb or booking.com, I'm not necessarily aware of the fact that it might be a short-term rental run by another company. But I know that personally, if I had a great stay and loved it and then recognized, oh, this is a brand, I would definitely then want to go specifically to that brand's website to book with them again, rather than use a distributor to book that, because I've had a good time and I trust that brand there. So definitely finding ways to use technology to seed subtly that this is a branded apartment and there's more experiences available to those guests.
Completely agree. We without realizing it, because you articulated it so well, Victoria, I think we do that by giving every single guest a branded tote bag, which is, I mean, for all the spreadsheet warriors out there quaking in their boots, thinking about the margins of and giving a guest a really nice tote bag every time they stay, but it's something that speaks to visible sustainability, avoiding plastic bags during their stay. It's a recycled cotton, high quality tote bag. Everyone loves tote bags. And then when they take it away with them, they're walking billboard with your brand on their tote bag. So there's some very low tech ways to do that. But what I was going to say earlier was what Alex mentioned reminded me of a time I stayed at a service department in Reading, of all places, where they had taken that sentiment to another level. Like they'd obviously read some marketing or branding guideline about how you need to put something in front of a customer 7 times before they remember it, and they had literally put book direct signs on practically every single surface of this apart hotel room. It was on the toilet seat, it was on the back of the door, everywhere you looked you were reminded to book direct. Suffice it to say, I didn't stay there again, but that wasn't the reason. Just didn't happen to need to go to Reading ever again.
Cool. I guess my next question was just sort of looking ahead, what kind of innovations and shifts in guest technology do we all kind of see shaping the next, say, 12 to 24 months? So Sandrine, if we start off with you.
So I think we've yet to see much in terms of true innovation driven by AI on the guest journey. It's starting, and you guys had some great examples here, but it's not done at scale. I think what will happen is we're going to need the technology to talk from one system to another a lot better and a lot more, and that is true of the Alexa systems for in-house, in-room communications or anything else. Really, it's going to need to talk to something else. So that's one thing, is you're probably gonna see this trend over deeper integration, over a multiplication of systems. So that's the one thing. And then I think we are about to see some real good changes on the guest front. I think the guest side of things will probably be the first ones to see the benefits of AI. There's AI bots, there is AI voice assistants, there's video AI. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we're starting to see for the hospitality world. So I think we are just on the cusp of like true, real innovation that people will engage with. Like you guys all said, like it needs to be simple. It needs to not be an app to download. It needs to not be something that you need a manual on how to operate. And I think operators and tech providers are understanding that, and they are putting. This is why it's taking a while. I think it's because we are putting final touches to something that would genuinely benefit guests and staff. So I think yes, deeper integration between tech providers. And a simplification of the landscape for it to actually drive this sort of AI benefits. AI needs data at the end of the day. You need to feed lots of data, really clean data, and you can't do that if you've got many systems and many systems of record. So that's my take.
Sandrine and Victoria, got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think interoperability is definitely an area that we'll see become easier. Alexa Smart Properties does integrate with PMS systems. So we're already doing that, but also with various smart home appliances and providers too. So I think being able to do that quickly and seamlessly is going to be really important, and leveraging AI to actually create those connections, not necessarily, lots of people doing software development. I think that could be a really cool thing that could happen. But I also think the ability for AI to analyze data for you could be really cool too. So, with all of these in-room systems, if you've connected, your TV, your tablet, or your WhatsApp, any system that you're using to communicate with your guests outside of face-to-face, being able to go, okay, right, this month, 100 people asked me for the Wi-Fi password, so I know that the sign in my room isn't working. AI could start providing that analysis for you so that you don't have to sit down and go through it yourself or log on to a dashboard even to look at graphs. You could say, like, I'm going to use an AI tool to summarize the data for me and then make recommendations for how I can improve my guest experience. Again, freeing up time, but also helping you maybe to pick up things that you might have missed before. It's like having a personal assistant, really. So I think we'll see more of that. And then I just think we'll see changing guest expectations too. We all use AI now in some way or other, maybe sometimes without even realizing it. And although our lives are perhaps in some ways more complex with all of the technology we use, it's also a lot easier and faster to do things. So making sure that we continue to evolve in this industry to meet guest expectations is going to be something that I think is going to be a challenge that we'll be talking about for years to come.
Victoria, so exciting time to be kind of moving forward with all of this in the industry. So it's really interesting to hear. And Alexander and Jeremy, coming to you, if you could kind of give operators a piece of advice when it comes to starting to build more seamless 5-star experiences today, what would that be?
Well, maybe one thing to add, which is a bit unrelated to, or in addition to what we already discussed. I think we can all agree, and we talked a lot about the direct impact on the guest side, like personalized recommendation, personalized guest journey, and so on. And I think that there's a lot more that AI can do there. But as property managers, short-term rental operators, hospitality operators, we also know that a lot is going on behind the scenes to actually deliver this guest experience more on the operations side. And I think also there, technology can make a real big impact when it comes to, let's say, cleaning, maintenance, and so on. And I think this is also something that I would encourage operators to look at. How can you leverage technology to make that as seamless as possible? And also here, what has been super helpful for us is the rental ready technology, where from guest messages or reviews, automatically maintenance tickets are created if there's maintenance issues, or any other tickets are created. and makes it much simpler. And I could see a future where not too soon, maybe we not too far away, maybe where then the system gives automatic maintenance calls to the preferred maintenance providers and so on, and takes a lot of that operational work also off the plate of operators. And I think that's something in addition to the guest side, which we all agree technology and AI will have a huge impact.
Thank you, Alexander. And Jeremy, just coming to you, do you have anything to add there as we kind of finish up our discussion?
Yeah, I think Alex is spot on. Again, there's so many opportunities. I think, again, if you're an operator out there that is thinking that, oh, there's so much that I could be doing, I don't even know where to start. I think maybe go back to the kind of core foundation of what running a hospitality business is, which is profitability, operational efficiency, NPS scores, guest review scores, and health and safety. And maybe beneath each of those, start to dig in to find out ways that technology, AI, data, etc., can be helping you improve those KPIs, and use that as a starting point rather than getting lost in the kind of quagmire of all the different tech tools there are out there. I mean, you could waste a lot of time, and I have, trying out all the tools.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that brings us to the end of today's discussion, but we covered a lot of ground. I'm seeing a lot of importance on kind of keeping things simple and really utilizing data to kind of think about what your guests really need and how you can utilize tech to enhance that. So thank you for that insightful discussion, everybody. And if we could just move on to the next slide. I have a few wrap-up slides before we finish. Thanks. So we have an upcoming webinar all on the business of efficiency and scaling smarter. So that will be on the 7th of October. So please do sign up if of interest. And tickets for our short-term rental summit in November are live. So please do secure your tickets if you haven't done so already. And if you are interested in working with us, then please reach out to our head of growth, whose contact information is on screen now. And again, just one big final thank you from me to all of our panelists who shared all of their insights today, and to our listeners. Further information on anything mentioned today is in those links below, so please do check that out. And please just enjoy this closing video from the IHM team.
At IHM, we believe in the power of connection. We exist to inspire, to inform, and to unite decision makers who are shaping the future of hospitality and real estate. Our why is simple. We believe this industry thrives when people and ideas come together. And we're here to make that happen. So how do we do it? We challenge the status quo by creating platforms that go beyond the expected. We blend intelligent content, curated events, and a strong community into everything we do. Making it easy, accessible, and genuinely useful. From online engagement to face-to-face connection. We are known for being insightful, collaborative, and refreshingly human. We publish 4 leading multimedia brands, each a trusted voice in its sector, delivering breaking news, bold opinions, and fresh trends. We host world-class events, panel discussions, podcasts, award ceremonies, and webinars. Designed to spark ideas, drive conversation, and create impact. With over 62,000 monthly web visitors, 55,000 email subscribers, and 69,000 social media connections. Our reach is deep, and our community is active. We're partnered with the biggest names in hospitality, and we'd love to connect with you. So whether you're looking to grow your visibility, meet the right people, or understand where the market's heading, read, watch, listen, and me. Do it all with IHM.